The Zephyrian war fleet had descended upon Kepler 442b like a storm of obsidian death, their crystalline ships casting geometric shadows across the human colony's modest settlements. For 3 standard cycles the siege had raged, plasma cannons reducing entire districts to molten slag, while kinetic bombardments shook the planet's crust. The colonists had fought valiantly with their limited weapons, but everyone knew the inevitable outcome. Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian 3rd Assault Wing stood atop his command platform, surveying the battlefield through compound eyes that registered 12 different spectrums of light. The humans' final defensive line was crumbling. Their primitive projectile weapons and basic energy shields were no match for Zephyrian technology that had conquered 17 star systems. Pitiful, he clicked to his subordinates, mandibles chattering in what passed for Zephyrian laughter. These mammals cling to their dirt like parasites. One final push and we shall claim their mining rights for the hegemony. The assault was proceeding exactly as calculated when something impossible happened. A lone figure emerged from the human trenches, walking steadily across the scarred no-man's land between the armies. No weapons, no armor, just a woman in simple colonist clothing, her hands empty at her sides. Vextar's optical clusters focused on the anomaly. What is this creature doing? Has it lost its neural functions? The human woman continued walking through the crossfire, apparently oblivious to the plasma bolts that sizzled past her. Zephyrian warriors paused in confusion, their targeting systems unable to process such bizarre behavior. In their species' 10,000-year military history, no enemy had ever simply walked unarmed into battle. "Shall we vaporize it, Commander?" asked Lieutenant Crixnell. "Wait," Vextar ordered, his tactical mind spinning. This had to be some kind of trap. Perhaps the human carried explosives or was infected with a biological weapon. "Maintain firing positions, but observe." The woman reached the center of the battlefield and stopped. She raised her voice and somehow, impossibly, her words carried across the entire war zone with crystal clarity. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen," she called out. "I'm a xenobiologist, not a soldier. I've come to talk." Vextar's translator implants worked frantically to parse the human language. The word xenobiologist made his exoskeleton tingle with unease. That was a scientist who studied alien life forms. "I know you can understand me," Dr. Chen continued, turning slowly to address both armies. "Your translation technology is excellent. I've been studying your biology for weeks, watching your dead and wounded." The Zephyrian commander felt his breathing spiracles constrict. How could this primitive creature have been studying them? "You're dying," Dr. Chen announced matter-of-factly. "Not from our weapons. From this planet itself." Silence fell across the battlefield like a shroud. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Kepler 442b's atmospheric composition includes trace amounts of xenon-132, the human woman explained, her voice carrying the authority of absolute knowledge. "Harmless to humans and most carbon-based life. But for silicon-based organisms with your particular respiratory physiology, it's a slow-acting toxin." Vextar's compound eyes darted to his tactical display. 3 of his warriors had indeed fallen ill during the siege, displaying symptoms their medics couldn't explain. He'd attributed it to combat stress or alien pathogens. "Your natural metabolism can process it in small quantities," Dr. Chen continued, "but extended exposure causes crystalline deposits in your lung analogs. Without treatment, your entire assault force will be dead within 48 standard hours." The Zephyrian commander's mind raced. Could this be true? His species had never encountered anything like xenon-132 poisoning, because they rarely engaged in prolonged ground operations on M-class worlds. "You're lying," he transmitted through his suit's external speakers, though doubt crept into his synthetic voice. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. "Commander, I watched 17 of your warriors die yesterday. The crystalline growths in their respiratory systems were quite distinctive. Beautiful, actually, if they weren't fatal." She reached into her pocket and every Zephyrian weapon trained on her, but she only withdrew a small medical scanner. "I can save them," she said simply. "All of them. A simple chemical compound that neutralizes the xenon isotopes. I synthesized it in my lab 3 days ago." "Why?" Vextar demanded. "Why would you help your enemies?" The human woman looked directly at his command platform, though she couldn't possibly see him at this distance. "Because I took an oath to preserve life, all life, even the lives of those who come to destroy mine." For a long moment, the only sound was the distant hum of idling war machines. What do you want in return? The commander asked, certain this was some elaborate negotiation tactic. Nothing, Dr. Chen replied. Except that you leave. Take your cure, save your people, and go. Find an uninhabited world to mine. The universe is vast enough for both our species. Vextar stared at the readings on his tactical display. 3 more warriors had just reported respiratory distress. His own breathing felt slightly labored, though that might have been psychological. You would trust us to honor such an agreement? The human woman shrugged, a gesture his cultural databases identified as indicating acceptance of uncertainty. Trust is all any of us really have, Commander. Your weapons can destroy our cities, but they can't make dead worlds profitable. And dead warriors can't enjoy the spoils of conquest. For the first time in his military career, Commander Vextar found himself facing an enemy who fought with something more powerful than plasma cannons or kinetic bombardments. The human had weaponized compassion itself, turned mercy into the ultimate strategic advantage. If we leave, he transmitted slowly, what guarantee do we have that your species won't follow us? Seek revenge? Dr. Chen laughed, a sound that somehow conveyed both sadness and hope. Commander, we're farmers and miners and scientists. We came here to build, not to conquer. The stars are wide enough for all of us to find our place. 2 hours later, the Zephyrian fleet lifted off from Kepler 442b, their holds filled not with stolen resources but with life-saving medical supplies freely given. As their ships disappeared into hyperspace, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the same spot where she'd walked onto the battlefield unarmed. She had won a war without firing a shot, conquered an enemy without raising a weapon, and taught an entire alien species that sometimes the greatest strength lay in the simple refusal to hate. Behind her, the colonists emerged from their shelters to begin rebuilding their world, while somewhere in the depths of space, a Zephyrian commander filed a report that would change his species' approach to conquest forever. The report's conclusion was simple. Recommend avoiding human-occupied systems. These creatures are far too dangerous to fight, not because they were strong, because they were kind.